Sure. I'm Pam Damoff, and I'm the Member of Parliament for Oakville, North Burlington.
Pam, when did you start experiencing for yourself online abuse?
I think I experienced it almost from when I first got elected, but certainly after I joined the Public Safety Committee and we started looking at gun control is when it really ramped up. And the local paper, the Oakville Beaver, did a story in 2018 about the bullying of women in politics. So I know it was, it was there, and I can remember my colleague at the time, Sean Fraser, saying, I don't get it the same way that women do. I get it on policy, not on me as a person. I've noticed, though, it significantly has ramped up since the pandemic and gotten much worse, and people are much bolder, whereas it used to be just anonymous Twitter accounts, for example. Now people use their real names, their businesses. They will email, call, leave their names, and also approach me in public.
You testified on the Hill and you gave some pretty explicit examples of some of the things that's come your way online. How do you deal with that?
Well, it's awful, and it wears on you, quite frankly. I also question, I had a letter this last week from a retired kindergarten teacher who said, I can't believe the way politicians are speaking to each other. I can't believe the way some Canadians feel it's okay to speak to elected officials. And it's not all Canadians. This is a vocal minority, but they're bullies. They like to intimidate, and it's difficult, especially if it involves family. I think that's one of the hardest, if somehow family gets brought into it, and it certainly has been the case, not so much for me, quite honestly, but certainly for my colleagues, and a lot of people don't want to go public with it.
Do you report it?
Yeah, I do. I do report it, and the response from the police is, quite frankly, underwhelming. Usually the response I get is, what would you like us to do? Or, we have three options. We can do nothing, we can phone the individual, or we can look at pressing charges. What would you like us to do? And my response is, you're supposed to be the experts, but at the very least, I want you to call the individual, and it's not only difficult for me, but it's also difficult for my staff. Going through emails and reading those things, receiving phone calls or voicemail messages that are just horrible. And with threats, and I have a small office, all MPs have a small constituency office. To worry about someone showing up at the office it's troubling. We've changed, as you probably know, all MPs have changed the security in our community offices now. We're not open to the public except by appointment. People have to be buzzed in. It's really changed the way, as an MP, we interact with the public. And I don't think it's good for democracy that we are becoming more and more isolated.
You said it's changed, and others have said it's really ramped up in the last couple of years in terms of COVID. When you say ramped up, can you put that into some sort of context?
I think the volume has increased. The willingness of people to approach you on the street as an elected official, it's gone from anonymous trolls to, screaming at me in the grocery store, for example, in my riding. And using, the F. Trudeau, the sort of the language of the protests that we hear quite often. Just when I'm out by myself buying groceries and someone feels that they need to scream at me like that in a grocery store, it's. I never thought that kind of thing would happen, quite frankly.
Do you feel afraid sometimes?
Yeah, it's certainly, and I'm not alone in that. I've spoken to my colleagues where I kind of look out over my shoulder. I do find myself sort of looking over my shoulder, or if someone is coming up to approach me, my guard will go up automatically. Whereas in the past, I would have welcomed speaking to someone when I was out and about. Now my back kind of goes up as soon as someone approaches me.
And I'm sure it's the same then for online, right? In terms of how much you're putting out.
Yeah, I mean, I rarely post on Twitter anymore. I do occasionally, but most of what I put online is on Instagram and Facebook, and I limit the comments to people that I follow, because even Facebook can get out of control, and people know the tricks. They'll send a direct message instead of making a comment, and it's a lot harder to report those. In fact, those are where often the worst comments are made. But you know, the National Firearms Association, when we were studying Bill C-21 and also Bill C-71 before that, the memes that they would do, I kind of laughed because I thought most people in Canada don't even know who I am. And, you know, they're doing Karen meters of me, you know, with my arms up. And but what I found was they would post something like that and it would ramp up the comments and the calls and the emails to the office.
You're an elected official. There's a tendency, as we should, to hold our elected officials to a higher account.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering whether or not there are elected officials that perhaps may instigate some of this.
They absolutely do.
And so how do we hold them to a higher account to ensure that's not the case?
There are definitely people who deliberately post online knowing that it will incite their followers. And as we know, angry messages get a lot more engagement than nice ones. If I post something nice about people in the riding, a few people like it. If it's something angry, it generates a lot more engagement online. One of the things that I am working on, it was started by the Mayor of Burlington, is a pledge. And so Mary Lou McPhedran and Lindsay Matheson have reinstigated the Canadian Association of Feminist Parliamentarians. And I've told them I will join the executive if I can work on getting more MPs to sign this pledge, to basically say that, you know, I will be respectful, we'll be respectful to each other, we'll stand up to bullies. I can't remember the exact wording of it. And we also call on police services and to take these matters seriously.
Given what you've experienced, and you're not alone, elected officials across municipal, provincial, and federal government are all experiencing it, especially women, vulnerable communities, minorities. What kind of impact do you believe this is having on our democracy?
I think it's going to make it harder to recruit good people to come forward. It's an amazing career. It's an incredible gift and opportunity that I've been given to be able to do this. But it does come at a cost, and I think we've seen a record number of women decide to leave, you know, a municipal level, provincial, federal. Catherine McKenna talked about it. I heard that there were over 100 women who'd left politics in the province of Quebec because of this. It will discourage good people from coming forward, and that crossed my mind when I announced why I wasn't running. But I also think it's important that we talk about this and put it out in the open, and really speak out against the bullies and the thugs and the folks that are being so egregious in the way that they're treating elected officials.
In terms of, you were talking about working with McPhedran and that group. I'm just wondering, have you had conversations with other MPs to share what you've?
I have spoken with other MPs, and you know, I've had a lot of people approach me to tell me their experiences, but they don't want to go public with it. So, you know, I've had people talk about issues they've had on a bus or being out, you know, getting ice cream with their child and being cornered in the store and being frightened. An MP talked about an email that they received threatening to rape his wife. But people are hesitant MPs are hesitant to speak out, and You know, and I've had media say to me, and people have written, well, this is what you chose to do. You need to get thick skin and toughen up. And there's a difference between criticism and threats and misogyny, and this is not criticism of government policy. It's very personal attacks, and it's very different. So it's a lot more common than I think Canadians realize.